I'd like to present a concept to you. First, I'd like you to imagine something enormous, something extraordinary, something breathtaking. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you can be certain it'll catch your attention. Now I'd like you to imagine that it doesn't catch your eye whatsoever. You pass by this incredible sight the same way you would a piece of trash on the side of the road. You silently note it, you decide it's not your problem, and then you go on with your day, likely not even remembering it an hour later. But what if you could induce this effect in someone as a means of concealing something you wish to remain unseen? The idea was actually explored before, very briefly, although, in one of my favorite sci-fi series, A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. You may have heard of it. This series is no stranger to wacky sci-fi technology, and the third entry in particular introduced a kind of cloaking device called an SEP field, which is used to hide a spaceship in plain sight in the middle of London. To give you some idea of what this device does, the acronym SEP stands for someone else's problem. Essentially, it achieves the exact same effect I just described. While whatever one wishes to conceal with an SEP field is visible, and passersby may notice it, they won't investigate or address it in any way because it's someone else's problem. So you understand how an SEP field could be used to hide an inanimate object like a spaceship. But let's try broadening our horizons and definitions a little bit. Could one use an SEP field to hide an idea? The plot of a brilliant novel pops into your head one night, and you entertain it for a few minutes before concluding that someone else would probably do a better job of writing it than you ever could, and you let it quietly slip out of your mind. Or what about a task? You're passing through the kitchen, you notice that the garbage has been filling up under the sink. You see where I'm going? You look at it, and you think to yourself, someone should really take that out. And then you leave it for someone else. This is starting to sound familiar. And it should, because we humans do this kind of thing all the time. And it's my sincerest belief that this little habit of ours can, has, and will have disastrous consequences for our entire species. You've likely noticed this, but we are currently living through a period of history that can be best described using academic terminology as a flaming hot mess. Within an absurdly short period of time, less than the length of a human life, the colossal, chaotic collective that is human society has yanked its head out of the ground, looked around, and said something to the effect of, "Oh crap." Around the world, all these potentially catastrophic issues that have been simmering away in the background for centuries are just now approaching boiling point. We're seeing the long-term effects of climate change and overpopulation creating insecurity in food and water sources, political polarization fracturing society into groups and setting them at each other's throats, systemic oppression somehow continuing to exist. And above all, every single one of these threats to society's well-being are woven together into an elaborate tapestry of chaos that would probably be quite beautiful if we hung it up on a wall somewhere rather than being forced to live inside it. So, we see this crisis made of crises. And in response, most of the now 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion, can you believe that, stuck their heads right back in the ground again in the hopes that someone else will deal with everything. And I don't blame anyone for that. It's a very, very human reaction. One of the things I appreciate most about people is how consistently human we are. And wasn't expecting a laugh. And one aspect of being human is a tendency to kind of shut down and disassociate when faced with something so much larger than you can comfortably think about. For a personal example, if you step outside and you look out across the water, you'll see the Olympic Mountains on the horizon. I see those mountains literally every day, and I usually don't think twice about it. But sometimes, when I'm driving over one specific hill in Victoria, I see two buildings rising up out of the skyline, and then I see the mountains, which are miles and miles away, and already look small because of the distance, and they're towering above those two buildings. That image of human achievement being so infinitesimally tiny in comparison to the enormity of the world that produced us, it never fails to make me feel just a little bit uncomfortable. And ultimately, it just proves what is fundamentally a very human trait. We cannot comprehend the magnitude of the world we live in. That's why looking up into the stars at night instills within us such a sense of awe. Even for something as cosmically tiny as the planet Earth, let alone the universe as a whole, the scale of it is almost impossible to comprehend or even accept. So when faced with something like, I don't know, the monstrous culmination of humanity's entire repertoire of historical screw-ups, I don't think it's unreasonable to shut down just a little bit. Our brains literally weren't built to handle a problem of global proportions like climate change or overpopulation. That's likely a major reason as to why these are even problems in the first place. The consequences are so vast and all-encompassing that past generations couldn't even conceive of them. And the only reason we today can even approximate a comprehension is because we're being forced to live with them. And I think it's pretty likely that this habit of ours, this response to adversity, is a major reason as to why these global issues continue to perpetuate themselves. It's almost as if the entire planet is encircled by one giant SCP field. We can't comprehend the problem, so we can't conceive of a solution, so we turn the other way and leave the problem for someone else who can do those things. Thing is, no one can. That's a very unfortunate consequence of everyone in the world being equal in our humanity. And when you have the entire population of the planet, or at least most of them, turning their backs on a problem because its consequences are so far beyond their understanding that they end up seeming somehow less significant than those of day-to-day challenges like writing a novel or taking out the trash, nothing ever gets resolved. Ultimately, the problem isn't necessarily that we're ignoring these issues, it's that we're all ignoring them together. So, in a situation like this, where the problem, or at least the thing that's preventing us from solving the problem, is hardwired into our brains, how can we make change? And most importantly, how can we make that change before we end the world? Well, there's another problem here. If and when we choose to see these problems for what they are, what will that look like for us? There's a reason they scare us so much. This scale of adversity can't be fought by any one person, so what's the point in acknowledging the imminent threats to our civilization if we can't even hope to make a difference? I can't just point at someone in the audience and tell them to go take down an exploitative corporate empire through sheer gusto, and waiting around for someone with a big enough ego to be undaunted by these challenges and enough cash to throw at the problem until it goes away isn't reliable in the slightest. Every day we see activists, organizations, governments working to make any little difference they can, and nothing ever seems to change. And sometimes that's enough to make anyone lose hope. So I'll ask it again, what do we do? What can we do, even? How do we save the world when everything, including our own psychological coding, is set against us? That's a pretty big ask. And I don't think I can give you a straight answer. I'm not even sure if there are any. But maybe I can suggest a first step. If we are to move forward, we must first understand exactly what it is that holds us back. A single flawed, limited human brain can't fix this mess. But history has shown us, time and time again, the power a lot of people working together can have. It may sound cliche, it may sound naive, and history has proven just as definitively that it is not a guaranteed fix. But like it or not, working together is one of the only courses of action we know can be effective. Maybe one person can't solve the problem alone, or maybe even many people can't solve the problem alone. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one person is powerless to stop it. Solutions won't present themselves if we keep pretending someone else will find them, so what if we try a different approach? What if we try all being the solution? Look at everything that climate activists say have done over these past couple decades and multiply those outcomes by 8 billion. The world we've built is terrifying, especially right now, but with that many minds at work, I adamantly refuse to believe it's beyond all hope. We are long past the point that threats like climate change, polarization, and oppression are the responsibility of any one person. We're past the point of an SEP field. This isn't someone else's problem anymore. It's not mine, and it's not yours. It's ours. Thank you.